Howdy, hi, hello. I'm your host Nene, and welcome to Biz Chill. Today we're covering the sixth chapter of Sam Walton's Made in America. I'm so sorry this episode's so late and the last chapter was so short, but I promise today we're going to be covering a lot of interesting stuff. So the sixth chapter, it's called Recruiting the Team, which pretty self-explanatory, but today we're going to be covering the sixth chapter, yes. So, without further ado, get a drink of your choice, cuddle up, or just do whatever makes you comfortable, and let's get started. So, Chapter 6, Recruiting the Team, starts with a quote from Mrs. Helen Walton. It reads, I kept saying, Sam, we're making a good living. Why go out? Why expand so much more? The stores are getting farther and farther away. After the 17th store, though, I realized there wasn't going to be any stopping it. Essentially, she wonders why her husband keeps opening many stores, even as the stores are getting farther and farther away from their home. But after the 17th store, Mr. Sam Walton is still determined to expand, seeing the future's potential, while other people think that, okay, maybe that's enough. So, this shows he had a lot of entrepreneurial vision. He was a great leader. I mean, he built Walmart from the ground up. And great leaders usually, I find, see opportunities where others see risk or good enough. This is also like the blue ocean theory, I believe it's called. It's a very cool theory that there's two oceans, a red ocean and a blue ocean. The red ocean is essentially an overpopulated market, and the red is like the blood in the water because all the prey's dead. But the blue ocean is an ocean where it's untouched. So basically, an untapped market, which I think this combined with the first mover advantage of expanding early into like underserved places let Walmart dominate where competitors are essentially completely absent. Because Walmart, even now, I feel like they expand to small towns. I talked to someone who lives in America. They said that in New York City, there aren't many very Walmarts, or maybe like none. If I remember correctly. And I thought that was really interesting because even after all this time, they're still sticking with their business philosophy. So, however, this method does run the risk of like expanding too quickly and it spreads their resources thin, which would lower the quality somewhat. Also, expanding too many stores could run the risk of cannibalizing yourself. But so essentially, if you have too many stores too close to each other, the customers will go to like in your same store, but just in another place, and that might make like the rent per customer, like the cost you use to rent and like the amount of money you rake in per day might not be worth it. And that can be very harmful to a business. So there is the risk of that. Though I don't think they not encountered they did not approach the subject in this chapter. So that was a very long rant for like the first quote. Um so Mr. Sam Walton starts off saying that he at the very beginning they must have looked like promoters. They had donkey rides and huge stacks of products and riding out mowers in the parking lot. And this probably seems pretty silly to outsiders and probably led to people underestimating your business. Because imagine you go to like a store, like you have a store, and then the other competitor is doing all this silly stuff, and you must be like, okay, that kind of seems a little bit silly to be investing all that money into these kinds of displays. And that led to them underestimating him. I don't think Walmart was even on the radar for most of the big companies at that point, like Kmart. I don't think they were on their radar because they were just kind of a little bit outside the main market. And that's why Walmart had time to grow as a company. And by the time they grew as a company, well, by then they were kind of too strong to take down, right? So, not only are these promotions kind of like brand differentiation, because I'd love to go to a store that had donkey rides. That sounds super fun. It makes shopping memorable and it helps Walmart stand out. But being underestimated again allows a business to grow without attracting rivals' attention. So, but there is also the risk of not only your competitors finding you not very serious, but also your customers not finding you very serious. Though I don't think it doesn't affect you that much, I guess, because I mean, if you have the lowest prices in town, then forget how serious it is. It's the lowest prices in town, right? So there's that. Money Early discounters early on, like he says in the book, were chasing fast money. They copied each other, they built flashier stores, but they didn't focus on like the solid management or any systems, and that led to the downfall. Because at the start, he said that these discounters were rolling in money while he was kind of building up the system and wanted to make this project something that would last long, long after he was gone. So that would, of course, be very. I mean, if you're making fast money, then that method is very sound. Like at least after the business fails, you can like or like if you can see like the business is going down, you can either sell a company or I don't know, sell the plot of land it's on. Both will have at least somewhat market value at the end. So it's not a very good business practice if you want to say long term, but only goes to show that only like the businesses with strong fundamentals or like good team or like good systems survive like the tougher times. Because there's this quote, it says, "Many of these started with more capital and visibility than we did. And they were bright stars for a moment and then they faded." So without a real good foundation of they weren't gonna last. And it was very interesting reading that. Um I pretty much plan in the long term most of the time, so thinking of like a plan that'll only last at best like 5 years is not very in my reach. So it was very interesting reading that. Mr. Sam Walton again traveled to many other stores in different states, and he learned to get ideas from competitors and adapted them. So he actually has this quote. I like this quote a lot. It says, "I've stolen, I actually prefer the word borrowed, as many ideas from Saul Price as is from anyone else." It's it's very interesting. I think that he borrowed a lot of ideas from everyone cuz he went to a lot of stores. So he went to the east where he saw mill stores and then that's where it all started. There was Ann and Hope in Providence, Rhode Island, and there were some others in Massachusetts, sorry, across New England. They went over there and they saw like giant stores in Mammoth Mart and Arlen's. I don't know what these companies are. They sound very interesting. He specifically pointed out Soul Price a lot though. They're the company that started Mart, I believe, in Southern California. Oh, nuts. They're not the company. Sorry, that's the person, Soul Price, and he was an operator who started FedMart. Also, fun fact from this chapter. Um, the person who came up with Walmart's name was Bob Bogle, but the reason Mr. Sam Walton accepted the name right away was because the sound was cheaper, which is usually pretty in character for him. Pretty usual for him to like find something cheaper and like, oh, let's do that instead. Um, but it was because he really liked Mr. Soul Price's FedMart name, so he latched on it right away to Walmart. Kmart did not exist at the time, which is really ironic. So you have to wonder if Kmart borrowed their name idea from Walmart. But to be fair, anything with attached to Mart, like you can just put your name there and like make it more like Nene Mart. I did not know what name to use, so I just used my own name. But it's a pretty interesting thought. There's also this section he notes that the very early promoters were pretty egotistical people who loved to drive around in big Cadillacs, like the cars, and fly around in their jets and vacation on their yachts, and lived in houses like he'd never even thought about before, which is a very flashy lifestyle. I could imagine this reading me. He notes of a time he went to dinner at one of their houses, and they got picked up by a limousine that must have had room for 14 people. That's a huge car. I have never seen a car that big in my life, but he does say that most of them would probably still be around today if they had followed some basic principle about running BitStars. Um, but after that, Mr. Sam Walton realized that treating employees well is the key to customer satisfaction and survival. Other stores often failed because they essentially ignored their staff. There's this quote here. It says, "If you want people in stores to take care of the customers, you have to make sure that you're taking care of the people in the stores," which is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, if you want someone to treat someone else well, they kind of have to be at the very least happy for us to do that. I can't like Imagine being unhappy and then you expect me to stand there and like be nice to customers. That sounds exhausting and very unsustainable from a business perspective. This resulted in higher loyalty and better performance. This also resulted in low staff turnover, which probably helped a lot because training costs are very expensive. The time it takes and the resources it takes, it's very costly to train a new employee. However, again, it can be very costly to start essentially. And well, training and benefits are investments, right? So that's very exhausting. In the middle of 1966 at this point, Walmart number 5 was construction in Conway, Arkansas. And he was trying to show Walmart's first president, Mr. Farrell Arend, all the plans. So he loaded Mr. Arend's wife and himself onto a plane and they flew down to the fifth Walmart store. And he says it was in a terrible neighborhood and it was not a very good place for a store. But later on, Mr. Sam Walton called and he told Mr. Aaron what the sales were. And he's like, oh my goodness, these stores did as much in one day as some of our biggest stores do in a month. So it goes to show how much traction they were getting at least, but they weren't attracting any attention. So, um, I don't know. I would like to bring that up. It was very interesting. Also, another benefit of them being seen as harmless and generally unthreatening and small was that Mr. Sam Walton could easily meet up with like top competitors and learn their secrets and apply all their tricks. This does run the risk that you will be recognized like, oh, you just want our business secrets, or at least how we run our business, and they may shut you out. But it worked for quite a while for Mr. Walton. Mr. Ed Marks was one of the people he met up with. He was in a conference when Mr. Sam comes up to him to introduce himself. He says, let me introduce myself. My name's Sam Walton. And I'm a little fellow from Bentonville, Arkansas, and I'm in the retail business. And Mr. Marks says, well, I know everyone in every company in the retail business, but I've never heard of Sam Walton. What's the name of your company? And he's like, Walmart stores. Well, welcome to the fraternity of discount merchants. Basically, he's welcoming him to like the club essentially. But Mr. Sam Walton is just like, please tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what's wrong. What am I doing wrong? And Mr. A. Marks essentially says, I'll just quote it: being here is wrong, Sam. Don't unpack your bags. Go down, catch a cab, go back to the airport, and go back to where you came from, and keep doing exactly what you're doing. There is nothing that can possibly improve what you are doing. You're a genius. Mr. 8 Marks eventually invited him to join the NMRI, and it turned out to be a very valuable association for him. He was on the board for 15 whole years, and he made some very good contacts and really good friends. So this is how he started, I guess, roughly. Um, Mr. A. Marks does know that their systems were rudimentary by, well, today's standards, but it was very, very advanced for the 1960s. Mr. Sam Walton spent a lot of time reviewing the operations, and he brought some of his people up to like review the operations as well, which just goes to show how much he likes to like learn from other people and kind of copy their ideas if they're really good. Copy sounds like a harsh word. Borrow their ideas. Eventually, Mr. Sam Walton started to go to computer seminars and learned how technology could help manage the growing stores. Because since at this point, the Walmarts were getting further away from home, and he couldn't just go down to the store and see how it was doing anymore. So he wasn't a tech genius in any sense of the word, but he also knew tech would be very vital, and it was very advanced for its time. Essentially, it was using data to make smarter, quicker decisions, what's selling, what isn't, and that probably helped a lot with like weeding out the things that weren't selling and replacing them with things that were. This also probably helped with inventory turnover, since selling and restocking products are really important to keep cash flowing through the company. However, Walmart's small town focus really meant that they couldn't rely on like big city distribution systems. So they built their own warehouse and adopted systems like cross docking. Essentially, that just means goods go on one side, the other out the other fast. So like just go in, go out, basically. This is a really cool supply management. Essentially, just controlling product flow from one supplier to a customer reduces costs and delays. There's vertical integration, which just means owning parts of the process, warehousing, transport instead of playing outsiders, which probably cost a lot initially, but probably help them save a lot of money down the line. And cross stacking again reduces times and cost. Though this would probably cause it would be a little bit harder to manage. At that point, they were growing very, very rapidly, and growth means, well, a lot of heavy borrowing. But Mr. Sam Walton also always demanded justification for every major expense because, again, he's a very thrifty guy. And he focused on profit. So this just shows he was using leverage or debt financing, using borrowed money to grow faster, which is a very risky move if I say so myself. Too much debt can cause a lot of financial stress. And if you can't repay that debt, well, then you're gonna probably have to cough it up from somewhere because the bank's probably not just gonna be like, oh, it's fine. They're gonna take your assets. Um, and this just shows he had a lot of financial discipline, like we know already. He's always checking if an expense is truly needed. Um, a quote I liked. He always played it close to the bell, which I understand means that he just tried to keep the cost as tight as possible. Which it's a very funny saying. I like it. Eventually, he hired Ron Mayer, and Walmart installed new systems, specialized management, and had better communication. And this moved from simple shipments to organized zones and cross-docking again. Um, so essentially, they just tried to make everything as efficient as possible. At this point, they had over 30 stores and a professional team, so Walmart was very much positioned for rapid growth, and they started thinking about taking the company public, essentially thinking about being listed on the stock exchange and market to raise more funds so they could expand more. So this is an IPO, obviously. IPO just means initial public offering. So just raising money from public investors to finance big expansions, which they were very successful in. Scaling and oversight, keeping their management systems tied to is the key to basically avoiding losing control, which I've seen that happen somewhat in companies that can sometimes like go public. And yes, this is where we end. We end on them about to take the company public, which is very fitting because the next chapter is called, you guessed it, taking the company public, which is very straightforward and I like it a lot. So that was today's episode. I really like this chapter. I like every chapter, to be honest, because I think this is a great book. But it just goes to show how Mr. Sam Walton had a very entrepreneurial mind. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. So, I'll see you next time for chapter 7. This was Nene signing off from Biz Chill. Bye bye!